You know, if you ignore the cars for a second, maybe some of the cranes, you can really get a sense of what it must have been like to live in medieval Florence. It's just so dense and old, and it's beautiful.
Buongiorno and welcome back to A Sense of Travel. I'm Michael Matheny, and this is Experiencing the City, where I'm on a mission to document the sights, sounds, tastes, feels, and smells of cities, countries, and natural landmarks around the world. Today, I'm in Florence, Italy, and I'm excited to bring this amazing city to you. Florence, Italy. The birthplace of the Renaissance, the heartbeat of Tuscany, and the home of monumental figures in science, art, and fashion such as Galileo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Gucci. A city filled to the brim with priceless art, famous architecture, and gorgeous vistas. Florence, properly named Firenze in Italian, is a city that packs in a lot of weight for its size. With just over 360,000 residents within its boundaries and around 1 million people in the metropolitan area, Florence is a small Italian metropolis that holds its own alongside the likes of London, New York, Paris, and Tokyo, thanks to its world-class cultural staples and cuisine. To attempt to capture this small but mighty Tuscan city through photography or videos alone would be virtually impossible. The rich sights, decadent tastes, bustling sounds, mouth-watering scents, and crisp physical sensations are what truly transport you into a world that otherwise seemingly only exists on a screen or a page. And that's why today, my mission is to immerse you into the Florentine experience by bringing all 5 senses of my adventure to this living gallery of art, architecture, and Tuscan culture to you. And so, cominciamo. Aesthetically speaking, Florence has no bad angles. As if you were transported into an oil painting of a quintessential Mediterranean old town itself, Florence is tightly packed, narrow, cobbled streets, enclosed by medieval, mid-rise buildings painted in a creamy yellow and adorned by deep green shutters and wrought iron balconies, feels like an entirely different world.
So Florence definitely has a look. All of the buildings seem to be some type of creamy yellow color. All of the shutters seem to be green. All of the roofs in typical Italian fashion are like a terracotta. It's pretty uniform, which is kind of cool.
The city's relatively dense population, with roughly 10,000 people for every square mile, and the well-preserved medieval and Renaissance-era urban fabric lead Florence to being remarkably walkable. I didn't use any type of public transit or a taxi once. This was ideal because the city is way too beautiful to explore by any other method than on foot. To place yourself into Florence imaginatively, navigating the tight, creamy yellow, winding cobbled streets, imagine the sense of musty stone, brick, freshly made pasta, and espresso wafting up to your nostrils. As you stroll those weathered beige alleyways, occasionally you'll stumble across a gray stone structure that reeks of historical importance and significance and seems as if it's existed forever. Adorning many of the doorframes and alleyways are Italian flags, which are flown frequently, proudly, and prominently. The Arno River, wide, gaping, and a murky greenish-brown, flows through the heart of the city. As you stroll the riverside promenade, scents of fresh, slightly fishy river water and soft morning dew breeze up to your nostrils through that damp winter's air. From the riverside, you'll see pointy, rectangular bell towers and terracotta-tiled basilica domes, massive and commanding, above a larger sea of terracotta lining the mid-rise buildings that blanket the city. The central arcades of Florence are more spacious than the narrower streets in the neighborhoods and seem a bit more polished and clean. These pedestrian-oriented boulevards carry higher-end shopping, nearly omnipresent gelato shops, restaurants, cafes, and boutiques on the ground level, with multiple stories of apartments and condos above. Permeating the chilly winter air are the chimes of church bells on the hour, motorbike engines — there are more motorbikes here in Florence than anywhere else I've seen — Italian-speaking pedestrians, tires on cobbled stone, and the clatter of cutlery from outdoor dining patios. One of the best places to soak in the landscape of Greater Florence while simultaneously stretching out your arms a bit lies on top of one of the many hilltops engulfing the city. Piazza di Michelangelo and its accompanying rose gardens are pure magic, especially at sunset.
The atmosphere up here is unbelievable. Look at this. Piazza di Michelangelo and the Rose Garden have this terrace that overlooks the entire city and the valley, and it's truly remarkable. I don't have other words to describe it. The air is calm, crisp, and cool. You can see the mountains. You can see rolling gardens amongst the hillsides, and you can see the entire city.
The vistas over the city, the Arno River, and the rolling mountains and hillsides on the horizon are simply blissful. From the Plateau Piazza, alongside the sense of rich, fresh earth, the prominent bell towers and terracotta-clad domes dominate the skyline, the towering green hills in the foreground are covered in classic Mediterranean villas, and the rolling mountains in the distance appear blue and misty. The scenery is complemented by the sounds of a softly strumming guitarist in front of a mesmerized crowd of onlookers. Back in the heart of the city, you'll find that the churches here are colorful, artfully patterned, and incredibly decorative. Shades of gold, blue, and pinks layered into marble and tile accents make for very interesting and visually stimulating cathedral entrances and really helps showcase how Florentine architecture contributes to the city's sensation of being a living art gallery. Which, speaking of, Florence is home to some of the world's most famous collections of medieval, Renaissance, and Roman art. One of the world's most notable and revered art galleries, the Uffizi, contains a serpentine maze filled with rooms upon rooms of just that. The airy, regal, and palace-like building, constructed in the 16th century and set alongside the cascading Arno River, hosts works from legendary painters including Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, alongside hundreds of other paintings and marble sculptures from centuries past.
The Uffizi Museum is just spectacular. It's got medieval, Renaissance, and Roman art just stacked in here. I mean, look at this. A lot of this dates back to the 1400s. The Roman art dates back to the 2nd century, 3rd century. It's just insane.
Given the range of art from Middle Ages into the Renaissance, most of the pieces have a religious focus with a heavy emphasis on Mary, or Madonnina. In a less imposing and grand structure, the Galleria dell'Accademia is nestled into the tight urban canyons of the city and is home to beautiful Florentine art from the medieval and Renaissance periods.
Inside the Galleria Accademia, which in addition to being home to some beautiful, beautiful local Florentine Renaissance art, is also the home to Michelangelo's David statue. Alongside the Sistine Chapel, this marble carving of David is perhaps one of Michelangelo's most famed pieces. It really towers over the room. It's quite remarkable.
Art is simply everywhere to be found in Florence. The cobbled plazas are adorned with beautiful sculptures and fountains, such as the magnificent and towering Fountain of Neptune, depicting the mythical figures of ancient Roman lore, and a smaller, less-known sculpture of a drooling hog, of which there's a gifted replica in my hometown of Greenville, South Carolina.
So for reasons unknown to most of us, Florence, Italy is considered a sister city for Greenville, South Carolina, and to prove our special little relationship, we have a replica of a statue that I actually saw in Florence not too long ago, right here in Greenville. Isn't he beautiful? Look at him dribble.
This oil canvas of a city doesn't just express its historic artistic prowess through its sculptures and paintings, however. As mentioned earlier, the buildings comprising the dense patchwork of the medieval city are littered with architecture meant to glorify and represent the highest of religious powers. One such example of this is the crown jewel and centerpiece of Florentine architecture, Cattedrale de Santa Maria del Fiore, Duomo di Firenze, or in English, simply the Florence Cathedral.
I mean, look at it. So we're going inside right now.
When gazing upon this magnificent structure from the piazza beneath its towering dome and towers, you gather a full understanding of how architecture truly is an art form. Renaissance murals lay beneath the fanned windows, surrounded in patterned layers of green, pink, and white marble and accented in ceramic mosaics. Inset into the symmetrical alcoves adorning the decorative walls are marble statues. Towering above the rest of the cathedral and the entire city of Florence is the terracotta dome and bell tower, making this gargantuan cathedral the most prominent and iconic feature of the Florentine skyline. Inside the chilly, drafty nave, the echoes of chatter, wind, footsteps, and the opening and closing of heavy wooden doors join the scent of centuries-old stone. At the head of the cathedral, you can gaze up into the interior of the iconic dome. Immaculately painted into the dome is a piece entitled The Last Judgment by Vasari and Zuccari, depicting in 5 vibrant and colorful layers the figures and apocalyptic stages represented in the Christian Bible. Both an excavation site and a museum, the glass walkways give a glimpse into the mosaic tile floors, stone pillars, ceramic floor additions, and painted frescoes of the cathedral's history, some of which date back to the 1st century.
The Santa Reparata Museum underneath the cathedral is like an excavation site. It's really cool to see some of the kind of rediscovered artifacts over time. Of course, when I say artifacts, I mean like tombstones. Well, lots of that.
You can actually climb to the top of Giotto's bell tower, but it is a steep climb.
It's over 400 feet at the top of this bell tower. There is no elevator. Wish me luck.
But nearly 300 feet up, you get stunning views of Florence and the cathedral dome itself. Dozens of other terracotta domes are everywhere to be found on the skyline, alongside cloisters of ancient stone buildings and creamy yellow facades beneath more terracotta roofs. Surrounding the city, which sits in a bit of a valley, are rolling green mountains with villages in a similar architectural style perched up on the hillsides. Even up here, you can hear the bustle of noise from the dense city below.
You know, if you ignore the cars for a second, maybe some of the cranes, you can really get a sense of what it must have been like to live in medieval Florence. I mean, it's just so dense and old, and it's beautiful.
The tastes of Italy cover a huge palette, from sweet to savory to salty, and I tried to balance the taste of Tuscany with some of the more classic Italian dishes. Every meal and snack I experienced was extraordinary, mouth-watering, and surprisingly cheap relative to cities like London, Zurich, and New York City. Florentine steak. At Trattoria dell'Oste, near the Florence Cathedral, sits one of the best steaks I've ever tasted. Florentine steaks are world-renowned, and with good reason. The number of times the word wow went through my head while chewing into this true delicacy gave me an uncanny likeness to Owen Wilson. The scotona steak from Trattoria dell'Oste was excellently salted, perfectly cooked, tender, huge, and incredibly juicy. Gnocchi. One of my best friends, who studied in Florence for a semester in college, assured me that gnocchi was a can't miss of the city, and I would say he was spot on this assessment. Warm, squishy, creamy potato dumplings in a rich cheese sauce and dusted in Parmesan, my dish came from Pensavo Peggio alongside fresh baked bread and a rustic atmosphere. Pizza. Another well-informed recommendation was pizza from Gusta Pizza, an internationally recognized family pizzeria right in the heart of the city. The brick oven Napoli pizza, coated with an olive oil base, tomato, mozzarella, anchovies, oregano, and capers, was perfectly salty, softly charred, and absolutely delicious. Gelato. Savory and salty have been covered, but the Florentine culinary palette wouldn't be complete without sweet. There are gelato shops on nearly every corner throughout the city, each with soft, creamy, and rich flavors either made from scratch or imported from within Italy. Some of my favorite flavors included tiramisu and chocolate cappuccino. Look, it may not feel as if a lot of ground was covered in Florence, but the reality is, I could have spent days and perhaps weeks wandering the art galleries, gazing upon the layers and layers of beautiful architecture, immersing myself in a history that predates the Middle Ages, and indulging in meal after meal of Florentine cuisine. A disclaimer I usually include is that, as with most of the world's cities, the true ambience created by the sights, sounds, tastes, feels, and smells of Florence can't be captured in just one visit. There are so many intricate layers to this ancient city that, in this case, I would make the amendment that these sensations can't be captured in 10 visits. My hope, nonetheless, is that through diving in with me as I recounted the experiential elements of my adventure in Florence, Italy, you were able to place yourself imaginatively into this living museum of a city in a way that makes you feel as if you've walked along the rustic, medieval, Renaissance streets too. As always, thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao.